Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thanks for joining me with channel update 13. And this was going to be my end of year roundup where I go through all my games, all my campaigns, give a bit of an assessment, and I also have a bit of an agenda to get through, some tantalizing information about some of the things coming to the channel for the next year. And also some details just how I'm going to be administering the channel in 2026. So what I'll do is I'll give you an overview of what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, this might go on for a while, this channel update, so I'm prepared to create two separate videos if it goes beyond an hour, and then I can split it up and I have part one and part two. But hopefully you'll find it quite enlightening, quite entertaining. I'm going to go into a bit of detail on each campaign and give my assessment of each. So if you are a cheerleader for any particular campaign, you should find that of interest. And even if you're not, see it within the overall context of the channel. You might see just exactly my thinking and how I placed it, give you a bit more insight into how it is being positioned in my overall portfolio of games. So just as an overview, I'm going to give reflections on the existing campaigns on the channel, and that's going to be the largest portion of this update. I will show you my schedule and rotation for next year, so it will show you how I'm organizing my channel in 2026. I will give some outline on some of the campaigns I'm planning to launch on the channel next year at the start. I have the rest of my scheduled entrants that I will briefly touch upon, and just give some updates on what my current thinking on those are. And probably the most tantalizing will be developments and what I call game concepts, where I wax lyrical about some of the ideas that I have in my head about other fanciful games I could be experimenting with on the channel. Finally, I'm going to finish off with some generic themes I want to focus on in 2026, and that's just about things to do with aspects of my campaigns that I feel I want to go into a bit more detail in 2026, or anything that I find of a particular interest that I want to pursue and have as a priority in that year. So each of my campaigns, I'm going to have a bit of a format in how I'm going to be approaching each. And I'm going to take each in turn and I will discuss them. I do, apologies up front, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform some editing, which means that you will have noticed that each of my campaigns has a particular color scheme. So this is actually the AD&D color scheme, so I don't really have to make a change of background color. But to facilitate any of the other campaigns, for example, my BX campaign has got a red background. I am going to, by the powers of editing, I am going to change the background color, and as if by magic, you will be transported into the campaign of the next in succession. So number one is AD&D. I won't have to make any radical changes to the color scheme. It also gives me the opportunity to draw in some of the supporting material, like the rule book and maybe some other items that I can show off that kind of accentuate that particular campaign or support it. So don't panic if it suddenly the camera stops. And I think with this this iPhone that I have, it does have quite a good fade function between edits. So it should go quite seamlessly and it shouldn't feel too jarring. So this is going to happen for this part of the session, where I'm going to be going through my campaigns. Thereafter, I will probably stick with one format. I might have a couple of freezes, just depending whether I want to go into any more detail on some of these tantalizing developments and game concepts. Okay, this is going to be the format that I'm going to be going through each of my campaigns. As I've said, I will take each in turn and discuss these following points: where each campaign has reached in its development, any unique aspects and special features that are part of the solo playstyle that I emphasize in that particular campaign, what makes it special, what makes it unique, has it got a flavor all of its own, their position, the campaign, the rule system in the spectrum of role-playing genres. So is it swords and sorcery? Is it high fantasy? Is it hardcore science fiction? I'm going to place it in that spectrum, and I think that's always, I always find that quite an interesting kind of contemplation to think, well, where does this fit in the overall kind of fantasy science fiction genre area? Does it come down on the low fantasy side or the high fantasy side? Is it a bit dark fantasy, that type of thing? And you'll be able to see if there are any gaps. I think I've actually got quite a good coverage of all the genres by this stage. I should have. I've got 16 campaigns, which I am going to be going through. Do not shudder. Hopefully it's going to be an entertaining ride. So, and also I'm going to talk about any future plans and ideas I have for each of those campaigns. So brace yourself. I'm going to cut to my first campaign, which is going to be Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, set in the Northern Marches. So number one is going to be, as I've said, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. This is the campaign that's set in my Northern Marches. I started this in January 2025, the start of this year, and it has now reached the grand age of 101 episodes. So quite a milestone to get past 100. I'm into my second century. It is a campaign that has reached, I would say, quite a mature position. I've got several dungeon adventures under my belt. The ones that stand out will be the Palace of Dunmorna, where I've had at least 4 jaunts to and fro to that interesting, completely randomized dungeon. And also the last venture that we've undertaken, the Temple of the Ruined Temple of Darkwater Lake, with the associated minor wilderness expedition that we undertook, where we had quite some interesting little tangles with rivers and just the general terrain of the Northern Marches. I've also had, during that time, looking back over quite a history of videos, various mini games, and also interactive sessions in Marchton itself. And here is an actual, to remind you, it's an actual picture of, or diagram of Marchton, our home settlement, almost like our base camp. Only a population of 600, but my goodness, it does punch above its weight in the interesting range of NPCs that inhabit this area. So that's Marchton. I'll stick that here so that you can see it. The characters in this setting, they're quite well developed, and they'll soon be reaching probably the region of level 2 for some of them. So that, again, that was one of my stipulations or objectives, that I wanted to reach that to the heady heights of level 2. They're also, I would say, quite embedded in the local culture of Marchton. They are allied with the Keep, and the Keep is the central authority in this region. And also they are known to our Lord Seaward, our Lord Commander, the Lord Protector, the representative of Bane, the lawful neutral deity which holds sway in this region. And he is on a mission to fight evil, repel corruption. And we are quite in tune with his ideals, and we are increasingly coming within his orbit. And good honors. I've got quite attached to my characters now. They really are quite, almost like I feel quite easy to play with them, and get inside their heads. And they've all got different personalities, but they come together as a party. 5 of them. They are a source of joy to me. And the good news is that they are currently safely and safe and secure in the Green Dragon Inn, which is placed on our little map, number 10 here in this little corner. And the Green Dragon Inn is it's become quite one of my favourites. I always feel quite comfortable in it. It's always got some good entertainment and some interesting characters pop up. We've had quite a lot of good fun in those this year that we've gone through, and quite a few interesting mini games that we've managed to play out and use my interactive mechanics and some of the things I've designed. So I think the style, if there was a style to this particular campaign, I would say that it's been a random design with a layering of thematic elements. So I would say overall there's been quite minimal intervention. I haven't really intervened. Probably the most, take the recent example. I did have a bit of intervention with the fact that I had our Andrew Sphinx appear and almost give our characters a bit of a help, but it wasn't really to the point where it was an overwhelming kind of leg up or advantage. They still had to overcome a few obstacles, but I thought that potentially they could have done with just a bit of give them a break. I think this is I have been thinking about what my dungeon mastering style has been in the past, and also having experience quite recently of being a games master again. I think I'm probably quite in terms of style, I like to have I like my players to have a good time, and I am not an adversarial dungeon master. I think I'm quite nurturing, not to the point where I am overprotective or I bias the party, but in the for a sense or an objective of getting a good game and an entertaining game. I will sometimes maybe give a bit of a push or a bit of guide to the players, and help them out a bit on the basis that it generates a more entertaining and a more rich and immersive experience. And I think really that is one of the points of being a dungeon master. You're not really there just to read the rules and say, right, you've gone into this room and and there's 20 orcs there. What are you going to do? You are there to nuance everything and give a bit of color and atmosphere, and also an entertain. You are there to I suppose to support an entertainment venture that you're all part of. So long story short, that is really kind of, I think that my style is coming through a bit in my attempt to nurture my particular characters. But I don't think that's been too much on display all year. I think I've been quite quite clinical with the way that I've been dealing with things, dice rolls and whatever, and we've just been going based on what is being generated. I'm quite proud of that. I think that's quite a good thing. Laterally, as I've said, I probably had started layering on some more thematic elements, but I think that's been for the benefit. And I plan to continue with this, I suppose what you would call a cerebral and thoughtful approach, and progress the campaign at its natural pace. So yeah, I'm not going to speed up or whatever. I'm just going to go at my own pace. I've quite enjoyed 101 sessions getting to this point, and I'll enjoy the next 99 getting to 200. And I'm not going to go at any different pace. I'm still going to be quite cerebral, thoughtful about things, and maintain the same style. I feel very comfortable in this skin, so I want to continue. And hopefully, as viewers, you feel the same. You like this style. It's still probably the most popular out of. I think it is the most popular out of all my all my campaigns that are being watched on YouTube, and to me this is the key one. Thinking about its position in the genre spectrum, I would probably place it as high fantasy, but with low fantasy elements, such as the historical influences, and also an attempt to present a realistic setting. So I've tried to emphasize things like, I'd have little mini sessions, say, to do with the judicial system, or talking about the feudal system, and also the hierarchy that's going on. Lord Seaward's keep, that type of stuff in his retinue, and just maybe somehow the economics work in feudal society. And I'm quite enjoying dropping that information in and keeping it almost kind of grounded, the setting, even though it is high fantasy. So that has been the story behind that particular campaign. And also, as I've said, I view this AD&D, this Northern Marches campaign, as my flagship campaign, and it will stand as the premier content on this channel. So it is number one, numero uno. AD&D will remain and always will be the primary one. This is the reason I started the channel in the first place, and it is the premier campaign. For 2026, what do I want to do? What are you going to do, Brian? I'm going to develop this setting. Here's a picture of a bit more detail into the actual. You will recall that we were on Darkwater Lake, the ruined temple there. This is where Marchton is. I want to try to develop more of the setting and find out some of these other places like Hawksmoor. Visit that. Who are the people that live around East Lake? Maybe some Long Lake inhabitants. There are dwarfs to the north. There are halflings somewhere. Shall we see if we can find them? There might be more beyond these areas here. So expand out into the actual Northern Marches itself. Find out a bit more. And also, there is this conspiracy that's going on and the corruption that's spreading. And I want to really hone in on that theme, and probably consider the characters' attempts to counter this, to foil any of these attempts by evil and corrupt forces to impinge on the Northern Marches. And this could also result in maybe some character missions, and just get our characters involved in the good fight for lawful neutral and lawful good in this region. And we can really get on side, and we can get involved with some of the major NPCs in the keep. I am looking forward to, I've been out adventuring for maybe the last 10 episodes, I'm actually quite looking forward to getting back into the Green Dragon, having a bit of a debrief, getting to know all the individuals in Marchton again before we set out on our next venture. Maybe we will go back to Darkwater Lake, potentially we might do something different in the interim. Darkwater Lake does beckon because we do have certain items, this key, for example, which kind of, almost like lures us back. Let us see what 2026 brings. Okay, I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to just kind of cut between individual campaigns. The next vision you will see you'll be in the darkness of space. So we return to my second campaign. As I've said, it's going to be the darkness of space. Traveller Classic Edition, and my campaign, the Shadow Nebula. I started this in April 2025. I am now up to episode 25, so it is reasonably mature. You will recall that I had quite an extensive setup phase for the character creation. My planet tarot, its details, and also we had quite a number of interesting interactions in the Dragon Hotel, which is a creation of mine. I came up with this idea, which is a bit of kind of a John Wickish like hotel that is universal across the Imperium, and offers some special facilities for residents on the basis that discretion is required between anybody staying in the hotel, and there are certain stipulations. I was going to say on pain of death if you contravene any of their quite firm guidelines and rules. Also, we had quite a lot of, with all these interactions that we're doing, all this character generation, all this planetary detail. I did try to present it as a kind of almost viewed as being the mini game aspect of the rules. So that is my view of the Traveller rules are that they are very much a set of almost like mini games, like character creation, planet creation, and I was trying to present them as that. So when I had all my little interactions, that was like a mini game, and almost like viewing that as part of the solo play experience, and hopefully I've been able to give that impression throughout all those long episodes where it seems like I was doing a lot of preparation, but actually in my head I was actually solo playing during those sessions, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and hopefully you liked what you saw as well, because you got to see some interesting characters being developed, some of my enhancements and overlays. Hopefully that was quite good to watch, and get a bit more of their story, and I was able to spin a view based on the dice rolls. The planetary creation, I tried to tease out some of the details about tarot, turning it into quite an interesting environment for us to play, and then all the different interactions in the Dragon Hotel, and also outside in the starport, and also in the urban zone of tarot, where we interacted with some, just using the random tables. And that was really kind of like me getting, cutting my teeth so that I could do this solo quest later on. But, I had a good infrastructure behind me. And when you think of it, the solar system that I generated, that expanded over the series of episodes, and it's now really quite comprehensive. I've got quite a big folder, a thick folder of supporting material for me to repeat things, for like patron encounters or rumors, or any of the interactions I have in the Dragon Hotel, or even out with in the starport. I would say that the play style that I have for this particular campaign is probably more programmed episodes with extensive random features um, with associated mini game challenges. So we've had I kind of give a set of direction at the start of each episode and almost like walk our characters through it, but they're faced with challenges. They are faced with little mini games that they've got to, almost like problems they've got to solve to get through, with consequences if they do not achieve it. And I quite like that style. It's quite a nice rhythm to get into. And also, I've got a developed arc in operation with more action and further danger for the characters in store. So I've got this arc mapped out. I don't have to be slavish to it. I don't have to stick to it 100%, but it's proving to be quite an entertaining arc for me to develop, and I am enjoying following it. What about the genre? What about where does this amazing, magnificent set of rules? There's old Jameson. I'll flick through these as I talk. Where does it fit in? Well, I would say it's the classic hardcore science fiction role-playing play style and ethos. So this is hard science fiction. None of this dashing sort of semi-fantasy space opera. This is, as I say, hardcore. What are we going to do with this campaign next year? How are we going to push it forward? Well, I would say expansion and exploration beyond Taro and Offworld is the objective, and an evolution of the subsector and the future history of the Shadow Nebula, where we are. That's the name of the actual subsector that we're in, and the supporting Imperium that I have. And that future history that I'm trying to map out, that will be my objective for 2026. So thank you very much, Traveller. You've given a lot of entertainment for me this year. I'm very glad I introduced you to the channel in April 2025. So we're on to our next campaign. Okay, so we move on to my next campaign, and this is another one that's given me a lot of entertainment during and pleasure during this year, and quite an intellectual stretch. I would say one of the more challenging campaigns to run, and that is RuneQuest 2nd edition, set in my proprietary setting, the Great Vale. This is a setting that I have created myself, quite similar to Glorantha, but not a direct analog. Does have some similarities, which if you want to find out the details, check out some of the videos. That is the only plug or advertising I'm going to do on this channel. As I've said, it was started in May. I'm now up to episode 15. How did it evolve? How we got here, and what have I achieved in the meantime? Extensive character creation process we've gone through, producing, I would say, some quite interesting adventurers. And also we followed that up with an interactive campaign development in the first town that we were in, Dorawaith. We were recruited by the Adventurers Guild, and I had some quite entertaining kind of trials and tests for our characters to go through. And then we had the subsequent mission set up, leading to a mini campaign in the village of Silverford, which I have largely based on Apple Lane. And I'm going to try to develop Silverford over the course of the next few months. I would say that the style of my campaign has been a designed scenario framework that I set out for each episode, but with random features and challenges littered and placed throughout that sequence. It is really a kind of hybrid format of a random and a pre-designed framework. I also have my rule of three criteria, which is heavily imbued in the overall campaign ethos, where I have a high probability, a medium probability, and a low probability. And I've tried to be consistent all the way through the campaign and use that as quite almost like the primary determinant of many aspects. Also using oracles and some random tables as well to support my decisions. So that is kind of where we've got to with this campaign. I use those techniques to get me to where we are. The actual, if it comes to the genre spectrum, I would say it's a mythic Bronze Age, Dark Age fantasy setting or world, and it's influenced by heroic and swords and sorcery elements. So it really is kind of keeps to the Gloranthan Bronze Age, Dark Age, pre-feudal, pre-medieval style, with a smattering of swords and sorcery, and hopefully some more heroic elements coming through as we develop our characters. It's so we've got a contained setting. I want this to be more developed and explored with character immersion in the growing conflicts and struggles of this region. So we've got the guild and its aspirations and its objectives. We are part of that, and we are fighting in a localized fashion against the forces of chaos in Silverfoot. We've also got the escalating chaos war across the Great Vale. So it would be nice to get our characters more immersed in that, become aware of some of the different factions that are at play in that situation, and become more attuned to the geopolitical situation going on. And this gives me the opportunity to do that with having my own setting and the ability to create in my head the overall scheme, and then kind of drip feed out information into the campaign setting from that central source that I have control over. And also I want to push much more kind of classic adventures and encounters. So, more, get into ruins, fighting monsters, the religious, the cult, and the runic aspects of, it does say RuneQuest. I want to have the rune side, the cult side to become far more important. We have had tastes of that in any of the interactions we've had so far. There's been a kind of a latent cult aspect. I want that to come much more to the fore in the coming months and over the course of 2026. So I would say that's RuneQuest summarized. Yeah, lot of fun I've had with RuneQuest. As I've said, it's been quite a challenging journey. I have never GM'd RuneQuest. You might have heard me say that about 20 times. It's probably the hardest one for me to get my head around sometimes. But I must learn. I must master this. I must become a rune master. So, and I will. Okay, let's move on to our next campaign. And this is number 4 in my campaign list. And this is BX Dungeons & Dragons, The Barony of Westmark. Yes, I've just had an entertaining session quite recently. Started this campaign, this was actually down to a poll of other competitors. In June of this year, I've just produced, as I've said, episode 15. That is under my belt. How it has developed over the year, I've got the expert version here just underneath to give you a bit of a display. We've had quite an extensive setting and character development process over a few sessions, and I think I achieved an objective of being able to perform that using an interactive mechanism to introduce features of the starting town of Freehold and also the barony, where we have solo role played. And I think having that kind of interactive means of generating, we were playing while we were exploring and understanding and finding out information about the setting. And it wasn't really just a data dump. You were actually involved in that. And I think that was quite a nice enhancement and feature of this particular campaign that I would probably use again as kind of best practice, and I might apply, or probably will apply, to some of my newer campaigns on the go as a kind of template to follow. We have some old favorites. We've got Old Hemlock. He is a character that we have become quite enamored to, and the Golden Griffin is a comfortable and a hospitable abode for our characters. They're all familiar features of this campaign now. The first adventure, The Haunted Keep of Blackthorn March, is in progress. That is proving to be a very entertaining test area to try out these rules, try out the combats, try out the encounter system, try out the dungeon generation. And I would say as a genre, this one hits the high fantasy absolutely between the eyes. It is high fantasy with heroic elements, black and white morality, and saving the world themes. So definitely the way I've set up the barony and the barony concept, and just some of the forces at work in this setting, you certainly have this rather, as I've said, a kind of black and white, good versus evil. There's a struggle going on, and the characters are very much in the camp of the good guys. That's the way I want to play this one. I want to have archetypes and stereotypes, and I made no apologies for that at the start of this. So that is what is happening in this. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with this campaign in 2026? Well, we're going to evolve the dungeon exploration process. I've already started in my last episode to put layers on, a bit of thematics and dressing, whatever, to improve that. So that's a start. That will continue. Creative development of the interactive playstyle format between adventures. So again, if we go back to the town of Freehold, we are probably going to have things to do, and I still want to try to make that entertaining and make it interactive. So little mini games, that type of stuff, and also maybe some of our travels around the barony that are going to come from that, give them a mini game flavor too. And try to be creative in that, and also expand the barony concept and introduce more of those themes. So the barony concept was the fact that we had different tiers of what was happening to this barony, and it went from like 1 up to 6. And I think we're sitting around about a 3 just now, and it's whether I layer on more of those concepts and have things like this rogue magic user popping up again, or the man in black. I've got this man in black concept going on, which is basically he's an evil force, and he's creating copies of the barony in these terrible planes of existence. Are we going to have that starting to impinge? Maybe that's a step too far for next year, maybe a 2027 attempt for that. And also we're going to explore and find out about the setting and more world lore development. So we have a very nice little map so far of the barony. I'm going to try to explore more of this, flesh out some of the information. You know, we've got some very tantalizing places to go. You know, Barrow Downs, Blasted Waste, the volcano. We're already in Blackthorn Marsh. The Dragon's Mountain, the Great Chasm. What is there? You know, these trolls coming out. You know, all that sort of stuff going on. The elves in the forest. There's Northmen lurking. You know, it's full of, you know, what about the evil men? The evil men in the town. You know, are we going to have a mission, secret mission to do a counter espionage in the town? That's all up for grabs, I would say, next year. So that has me done BX. I've had loads and loads of entertainment from this. This was a great choice to add to the channel. Thank you very much. What a fantastic set of rules. On to the next one. Okay, so we're up to campaign number 5, and that is Home's Basic Dungeons and Dragons, the Great Wilderness. That is my setting. Started in July. We're now up to episode 13. And we have been quite busy in this campaign. We've had quite extensive adventuring and role-playing with the exploration of the Tower of Xenopus. And one of the nice things about the home system was I took a bit of a view that I was going to try to get to the action quickly. So we didn't really spend maybe as long in some of the other campaigns on all the character development. And I had quite a simple system of giving them personality. And I used that. They have these almost like a kind of what I call profiles, which gives, you know, they were almost like a kind of snapshot of their background, a snapshot of what made them tick. And I found them really quite a refreshing way of getting right into the characters, and they've imbued the individuals in our party with quite a bit of you know, quite useful tools for me to direct and almost role play those individuals in that party. And we've also got quite a defined trajectory for this campaign. So we've got this pursuit of the Amulet of Power. That is our mission. So not only have we got an amazing starting dungeon, the Tower of Xenopus, we've got this Amulet of Power. So we've got quite a clear objective, and that is unifying and focusing our minds. We've also got some well-developed characters, as I've said, you know, with these profiles that they have, and the fact that I've, you know, become quite attached to these individuals. They're quite a nice little unit. And think about our supporting NPCs. We've got Amifrey Vane, the captain of the guard, Jangle Bones, who is our almost like our informer in the town of Porthaven. The Salty Siren and Gormadoc, and of course his cat. They are notable features. So it's all got a bit of a warmth to it. I think we feel quite, it's almost like the comfort blanket campaign that we can just, you know, it's a cold night, get under the duvet, nice and warm. This is that type of campaign. And also, this is something else I'm quite proud about with my Home's Basic. I've used the use of this DM avatar and the interaction with the characters, and that is proving to be an enjoyable and a unique aspect of this campaign. And I'm going to continue with that approach, and I will maintain what I call a proprietary patent for Home's Basic use on this channel only. So only Home's Basic will be allowed to use this technique. And I think it sits it down to the ground. You know, I've got my little dungeon master. He's explaining what a room looks like. He's interacting with the players, and I suppose the way it must feel like when you're watching this on the channel is that it's like the conversations a dungeon master would have with the players, and in a sort of funny sense, I can feel quite a sense of detachment from it, and almost like role play both sides, and I find that very enjoyable to do. So I'm going to continue doing that, and Homes Basic is the vehicle for that on my channel. Where does this sit in the spectrum? Well, I would say it's high fantasy, but with a sword and sorcery influence of more morally ambiguous protagonists, and what would probably be a grittier setting. I think I've got, for actual time, it's probably kind of early Renaissance England vibe. It's that kind of, it's sort of War of the Roses type. They've got that kind of fashion. It goes all the way up to full plate, knights and whatever. But not maybe early medieval or high medieval, but probably late. So it's almost becoming Renaissance. And the swords and sorcery, this is probably very much going back to the first ever D&D campaigns, which were quite imbued with the swords and sorcery aspect. But I'm going to keep the high fantasy. There's going to be good versus evil, that type of stuff, and some higher, it's got lore and chaos. These are the two factions that are really dominating this world. They are going to be center stage in this. So, it keeps that high fantasy tag. What are we going to be doing with Homes in the next year? Well, I'm going to continue with the mission of pursuing the Amulet of Power. And this will also allow the expansion of this setting. So I've got my little map here of my setting, and just a further development of these map regions, and I can do some sub maps. So if we go into these Grimwald Mountains, there are things up there that I hinted at when I was doing my introduction to the campaign. The Whispering Forest, what is out there. We've already had hints from some of the people that returned from that. Remember, there was the elf, it sounds like a joke, the elf, the dwarf, and the halfling in the pub. And they were shaking because they'd lost their human compatriots to some, I think it was a gnoll ambush or something. There are things lurking in there. The Serpent Mire, that sounds quite intriguing. We came across that almost like a crusader from the Order of the Blazing Dawn. And I think our cleric was quite enamored with following that. That would be an interesting place to go to. It is opposing this across the Cinder Wastes, the necromancer in his tower, and Mount Cinder. Of course, you've got to have a volcano in any good fantasy setting. So apart from the fact that we've got this interesting dynamic going on with the realm, the fact that is decaying, and we've got the Green March, and also down the Verlian River, it gets hot, and we know that there is some sort of tropical, I think it's called the Emerald Labyrinth, which is this tropical jungle, and really getting into swords and sorcery territory down there. Wouldn't that be quite entertaining to get down there and do some adventuring? So these are the places I want to be expanding from. Port Haven it has been great fun there, but maybe we want to expand our horizons a bit. So that is what we will do next year. But overall, Homes Basic, it really has delivered. I'm delighted it has been added to the channel. This is one of my favorites. I think from the views, it's you agree you like this one too. So long may it continue. Let's move on to number 6. Okay, so we're up to campaign number 6, and that is Hero Quest, the UK 1989 version. I've entitled this The Old World, but it's really just the quest book I'm playing, but it is set in what is deemed to be the old world. I started this in July. I am now at episode 10. So we've made quite a bit of progress. We've completed 2 quests and also experienced one of my what I call downtime sessions. For me, this has been great fun, a real joy to play. It's one of my favorite board games of all time. I'm enjoying the use of the solo overlay of mechanics that I have employed to give our heroes. We've got the barbarian, we've got our elf, our wizard, and our dwarf. To give them some autonomy and also quite a bit of characterization. It's been a lot of fun for me and hopefully enjoyable for you to watch. And I think with the use of random character behavior and also the house rules and downtime sessions, these are probably my main innovations that I have applied to the overall HeroQuest system. And the system itself is really quite elegant, it's quite contained, it's very streamlined, and it really, with the interaction with all the figures and the board and the furniture and all the pieces and the counters and the monsters, you really get a very immersive and very tactile experience. Having things like the victory adulations and the monster quips, these offer some quite nice chrome that I can add on as well. And I've got the facility to add in whatever I deem to be quite appropriate, additional atmosphere. For example, we had Sir Ragnar, and I had some special little sayings and mutterings that Sir Ragnar would utter with his aristocratic English accent. I can add in that as and when I come to individual adventures. If we were going to distill this down to an actual genre type, I would say it's probably a classic high fantasy stroke dungeon fantasy. So if you can think of a genre called dungeon fantasy, that is it, with a grim sword and sorcery atmosphere. So it's very much get in, get the loot, get out. Very dangerous. It's got that sword and sorcery edge, but it is fantasy. It's high fantasy, but down in a dungeon. So there you get dungeon fantasy. And I think, I'm not really going to dwell too long in this particular campaign and talk about it, because I don't really think there's too much to go into, because it's very visual in the actual videos themselves. Why don't you have an adventure watching one of those? But to really just sum it up, I would say that for next year, when I continue through the quest book, it's really going to be about progress and getting through that quest book, and introducing maybe more in terms of atmosphere and characterization. So I'm really glad I introduced this to the channel. I think it really is a very a welcome add-on to my portfolio. It gives me a bit of light relief. I can have a lot of fun with my characters as they squabble away down the dungeon. They seem to be quite capable of taking things on. So there is an element of jeopardy, but it is contained by the fact that they are capable individuals, but sometimes they don't act as a team, and that's where they can get into trouble. So it's whether they're going to slip up in some future adventures. Let us see. So looking forward to 2026 for our HeroQuest heroes. So on to our next campaign. So my 7th campaign is The Shattered Isle, and this I started in August this year. I'm now up to episode 14, and I'm very much due an update. This was my attempt to develop a rules light or minimalist system and focus on atmosphere and the world building of this fantasy-inspired Pictish world. Um, I would say that my initial character sessions, they were played out as a mini game and allowed a build-up of world sense uh, and having the extensive journey of the characters, this extensive journey sequence. This probably consolidated this. And I've been very pleased with the development and introduction of some new mechanics and play styles. And I would say that the things that I have tried to bring to this campaign have been things like emergent world development through their adventures. So we have these, I've got my little pawns here that represent our characters, and I've got my little character sheets here. So we've got Kayla, she was our herb healer. We've got Necht, our oathbound spearman, and who could forget Garnet, the spear hand. He was our sea raider. And they all had quite individual traits and abilities and also characteristics shaped by their Pictish background. And I tried to draw that out during the play. And I think I managed to progress the evolution of my solar system with these play sessions and demonstrations. And also try to make the Pictish cultural and mythical aspect central to the campaign. So introduce some strange things like omens and visions and some of the malign creatures that we were meeting out on the moor. And also the aim of bringing the setting to life through emphasizing atmosphere and the establishment, hopefully, of where you felt it was an authentic feel. And I was getting quite immersed in it, and I did feel that it was leading on to greater things. Where does it stand in our genre spectrum? And I would say it's probably your Dark Age mythic fantasy, but with a very firm heroic emphasis. So it's very much centered on generating heroes. These characters are on a hero's arc. They are in this Dark Age setting. It's very mythic. There's a lot of folklore. There's a lot of mist rolling in off the moors, that type of thing. Battlements, clouds, storm clouds, ravens cawing, that sort of thing. That was the type of atmosphere I was trying to generate. What am I going to do with the Shattered Isle going forward? Well, I have a strong desire now to expand the world and consolidate the mechanics and the experience more of the cultural life, those dimensions. So that would be initially the settlement interaction. So we're at this settlement now of Duncalith. Have all the interactions there, see how we get on. And also moving on from there, really try to experience the more mythic and folklore aspects. And I have been alluding throughout all the episodes to the rich diversity of strange creatures and creatures of myth and terrible opponents that these characters could face. I want to start introducing some of the horror aspects of Pictish folklore and have that seeping in to the world of these characters. So I think that's quite an exciting and challenging prospect. And also what I have decided, I've also realized, is that for this game, I really do need quite a bit of immersion to get the most out of the system and the setting. So it's probably best played as a focused series of sessions. And I think that's what helped with me at the start, because I just, almost like I had to make an apology at one stage, because, I said it's not turned into the Shattered Isle channel, because I was producing like one after another, and it was almost like just constant Shattered Isle. But I actually found that that was quite a good way of getting the immersion. I felt it was almost like I was getting sucked up into this world, and it was paying off benefits. And coming to it cold sometimes, you've almost got to get, it's a bit like, I suppose, like an actor or whatever. You've got to get into character. And I'm finding that the Shattered Isle is quite a difficult character to actually get back into the skin. We've got our good old Brenner McDonald. He is our bard. He is the narrator. I can use all my different Scottish accents and whatever, and I've had a lot of fun with that. I'm probably quite keen to get back to that type of thing, but I think the way to do it is probably a bit of immersion. So that is what I'm going to do for next year. Probably when I show you my my schedule, I do have an aging of when was the last time I created the video. And this is probably the oldest on that list. So I'm going to be producing Shattered Isle material as soon as I finish my Christmas break in the new year. So Shattered Isle will be coming back to the channel shortly. In the meantime, I've had a lot of fun with it. I am very fond of this one. This is my little, I generated this myself. It's all from my own imagination and from my own effort to produce this I suppose this abstract system that I've got and the Shattered Isle world. I want to try to consolidate that that system into a credible role-playing framework, and have the world shaped around it for next year. Okay, right, let's move on to my next campaign. Campaign number 8, and that is Stormbringer First Edition, The Young Kingdoms. I started this in September. We are now at episode 6. This is the second session that we have spent adventuring in the city of Trepezaz in Lormia. I'll give you a quick just to show you where it is on this amazing map of the Young Kingdoms, which I always like to show. Trepezaz, it is a port city in the sleepy kingdom of Lormia, once a great bastion of law, now in decline. What have we done? What have we done in those sessions? I think we have packed in quite a great deal. The initial deep dive into the characters we had was extensive, and it was very deep. But this was deliberate, as the protagonist, our protagonist Altharan, and his companions, they are central to the narrative and the narrative storytelling dimension of this campaign. And talking about the style of the campaign, we have a narrator, Eltharion, a games master, that's me, and a protagonist companion combination. And all three of us are operating together and following a narrative direction with random elements and immersive features to layer on atmosphere and the overall themes of fate and doom. So I've got quite a unique little setup here with the narrator coming in and setting the scene. I do the heavy lifting and describe the world and rulings on the interactions of the characters, and I've got my companions working with the protagonist, sometimes at odds, but most of the time together. They are slaved to a fate, to a doom that is etched into each episode, and I am almost driving the characters forward. It's almost like destiny is pushing them in a direction. Will they be able to resist this, or do they have the strength, the fortitude? We will find out in some of our adventures. And moving on to the genre of this setting of this style of game. It's most definitely a very clear example of dark fantasy in a sword and sorcery genre aspect. So dark fantasy primary, the sword and sorcery, yes. Um, you know, every individual is basically out for themselves. However, there is an overall arching conflict that is shaping individuals' destinies, and almost who is in charge? Is it individuals or is it the forces, the cosmic forces? I would say it's most likely to be the latter. I think there's a very clear indication that that's getting more powerful. And we have another very important player in this game. We have the vibrant and rich setting and a very, very dark subject matter. So, as a taken together, what is there not to like about the Young Kingdoms? What is there not to like about Stormbringer? And allied to an excellent role-playing system, I think I have hit the jackpot on this one, and I enjoy playing this very much. What are we going to do with our characters going forward? Well, we're going to follow the path and fate laid out for them, and I will try to weave an entertaining and enjoyable narrative with the view of exploring the Young Kingdoms. And it's my view of what the Young Kingdoms are. I'm not going to use any of the material that was published after this edition. I'm just going to use my own imagination and what I viewed to be, basically what I read from the books and gleaned myself, and what in my mind's eye, what I think the Young Kingdoms are like. And hopefully that will be appealing to watch. Again, this is a great addition to the channel. I think it offers quite a unique insight into already created world, and it's my spin on it using this, I suppose, quite unique way of telling the story, having this narrator, having me as the GM, and the protagonist and the companions. So that is that on that particular campaign. I do see that I am taking quite a bit of time to get through this. So what I might do is adjourn for the first part to finish after the end of this one, and do the rest of the update as part of part 2. So I will sign off this particular point. If you want to continue watching my end of year update, sign in to part 2 in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching.